This year we are going to experiment with growing potatoes in pots, which I've never done before. I have grown them in raised beds before, and they just take up a lot of space for a lot of time. And honestly, with raised beds, the hilling of the potatoes gets a little clunky, and I always end up dumping dirt over the side. So pots seems like a fantastic solution. You don't need to worry about the crop rotation, which is important with potatoes. And you can just toss these in aisles anywhere you have some spare space and move them around if you need to. So in theory, it's pretty simple. It's not that different from planting potatoes normally. I'm gonna get a big pot. So I've got some pots that shrubs came in. And this is about the smallest I would use. I'll put one seed potato in here. And I got a big tree pot that can maybe handle 3. So in theory, all we're going to do is put 4 to 6 inches of potting soil in the bottom, put the seed potatoes in, wet everything down, cover it up with 4 to 6 more inches of potting soil. Then as the potato plant starts to grow, we'll add more and more potting soil until we filled it up completely. So this should be pretty simple. So step 1, potting soil. Obviously not being very scientific here, just 4 to 6 inches. Then I'm actually going to wet this potting soil down. Alright, and then for seed potatoes, we have red potatoes, which we got these so long ago. These guys are very, very ready to go. By the way, this is very late for planting out potatoes. This was on my schedule to do, I think 3 weeks ago, so like middle of April was when I was planning on doing this. But these potatoes don't have that long of a days to maturity, so they should be fine. I don't need to cut these up. I have more seed potatoes than I'm going to be able to plant anyway. So in these smaller pots, I am just going to toss in a single seed potato. And this big pot can definitely handle 2. I'm debating whether I want to try for 3. I'm not an expert on this, but my hunch is the more potato plants you pack in will probably give you more potatoes that are smaller. Whereas if you have lots of space for a single plant, you'll have fewer larger potatoes. So I think I'm just going to do 2 in this big pot, 1 in each of these small pots, and then we'll just top this off. And that should be about it for now. I'm going to set these someplace where they get full sun. I'll probably scooch them around until I find a convenient out-of-the-way spot. As they start growing, as I said, we'll backfill more potting soil in there. These potatoes will need fertilizer throughout the year. My general rule of thumb is always anything that's growing in a pot needs to be fertilized regularly, and particularly potatoes, which are in the nightshade family. So they're hungry feeders, just same family as tomatoes and eggplants and peppers. So they're gonna need probably at least every other week some kind of fertilizer. But we'll see how this goes throughout this year. Planting plans have just gotten a little bit disrupted because the mail showed up and we just received our asparagus crowns, which we had ordered months ago from Johnny's Seeds. So this bed that I dug out and filled in last year, and actually grew peppers last year, but the idea is this in-ground bed will become the asparagus bed. And so I want to get those planted right away. I've never planted or grown asparagus before, but it seems pretty straightforward. First thing we need to do is dig out a big trench in the middle. We'll be planting just 1 row of asparagus, giving it the full width for its roots. So we dig a big trench in the middle that's about 8 inches deep. And then apparently we will plant the asparagus and just slightly cover it. And as it grows, we'll gradually fill in the trench. So, looks like just a bunch of digging today. Okay, so that's the basic trench. It's around 8 inches deep. Except my hunch is, when I plant this, the idea is to spread the roots out as much as possible. So I think I actually want this trench to be as wide as I can get it, which isn't easy because I only have this like 3-foot wide bed. So I think I'm going to try to widen one side of it up a little bit so I can get the roots spread out more when I plant it. Oh. I need a different tool for this. All right, and here are the actual asparagus crowns. Ooh, these look pretty dry. So yeah, that is all the roots, and this is the crown right here. And apparently we want to spread the, no, we're not going to be able to spread those out that far. We're going to want to spread the roots out, have the crown be sitting around that 7-8 inches deep mark, and then start covering that. So this bed is about 30 feet long. We have 2 different kinds of asparagus here. This one is Millennium, which is a variety of your standard green asparagus. We also got a purple asparagus, which is interesting because it's supposed to be so tender you can like eat it raw in salads. Although I think when you cook it, it also turns green. The green one needs to be planted a foot apart, so I think I'm going to plant 20 of these along here. And then the purple ones can be much closer together, up to like 6 inches, so I think I'm going to try to do 20 of the purple ones in the last 10 feet. Let's see how this goes. Okay, well if I plant these at the recommended spacing, there's going to be a lot of root overlap. I assume that that's just fine. Oh, here's a little one. This is more like what I was expecting to get. That fits very nicely in the hole. So when I set these in the hole, I'm just pulling a little bit of dirt to hold the roots down, just to hold it in place. I'm probably going to come through here and soak all of this, and then I'll cover it over with 2 inches of soil, so just partially covering it. Okay, and that job is done. So I will be watching for the asparagus to start sprouting, and as they start growing, I'll pull more dirt around them. I'll keep them watered really well, I'll keep them fertilized. With any luck, by the middle of summer, we'll have like a giant wall of ferny foliage here on the side of the veggie garden. And next year, we could even harvest a spear or 2. Okay, but more work to be done. We built 3 new raised beds for the veggie garden this year, which is actually 2 fewer than I had planned to build at the beginning of the year. And the ones we did build are kind of a crime. So Mrs. Graywood absolutely forbid us from buying lumber to build the raised beds because the price of lumber is just so expensive still. I think a single 10-foot 2x4 was $12 at the time that I was looking at buying stuff to build this. But, so we had a bunch of trees cleared around our house to make room for this garden, and we have been milling the tree trunks into boards. So I actually went and raided that pile to build this 10-foot raised bed. I looked for the worst boards I could find, but still, with the exception of the uprights, which is leftover 2x4s from last year, this raised bed is built out of solid oak 1-inch rough sawn boards. What's more, my father had some leftover lumber that he needed to get rid of. He asked me if I wanted it. I had no use for it and no real good place to store it, since I'm spending all my space storing this stuff. So he was actually going to toss it out for a trash pickup. So I was like, hey, well, we can make raised beds out of them. So these two little raised beds are now made out of solid cherry. So I have the most ridiculous and expensive free raised beds I have ever built. All right, well, that is everything I have for you this time. If you have any questions, you can leave a comment below, or you can email me at brian@graywoodgardening.com. It's still May. Next time we have more catching up to do, more planting to do, more stuff happening. So until then, happy gardening.